You're very good in the introduction because you actually answered most of the questions I was going to ask you. So thank you for that. But I wanted to ask something. I saw the film. I think I originally said to you at dinner in Toronto, and you gave an interview there, and you gave a quote which I liked, and you said you did want to do a film which tackled dictatorship and totalitarianism, but you also like the idea of this project because it took you slightly out of your comfort zone. I don't know if you remember saying that.
Yes, indeed.
Could you just explain, because it's on a bigger scale, it's historical. I wondered if you could just explain something about
yes. Initially, you'd think the comfort zone thing is, well, I've never done, someone else's story before. I've never done real historical figures before. I've never done another country, a foreign, well, I have, I suppose, but in a historical period of time before. So there are all those elements to it. But for me, actually, it was because I was making something that I knew, it was funny and it'd be a comedy, but there will be not just scenes in it that are not meant to be funny, but there will be an undertow to it, a kind of low-level hum of anxiety and worry running all the way through it that I wanted to try and get. And that for me is and also going into it knowing, and the first thing I said to everyone at the very first production meeting we had was, actually, although this is a comedy and we've got a great cast and it's going to be funny, we also have to be extremely respectful of the fact that millions of people were affected by what's going on here, and we have to show that rather than hide it. We don't have to be very, very graphic about it, but we can't pretend that it didn't happen. And that the comedy is not about that. It's about the events going on inside the Kremlin that led to that. So that's where it was. And also in terms of comfort zone, I kind of felt, it'd be interesting to hear what your take on it is. I kind of wanted to take the audience a little bit out of their comfort zone so that, by the end of the film, you've traveled, a little bit further than you thought you might in terms of the tone and what was going on.
It's something else we were talking about. I've seen the film twice now. It's a very different experience on subsequent viewings. The first time I saw it, I was primed for a comedy. I think I said I watched it after Mother. I could have watched anything after watching Mother, and it would have seen. But I was primed for a comedy, and it delivers on the comedy. But when you watch it a second time, as I did today, it's the kind of darkness and the complexity of it that comes out. So go and see it again, buy a second ticket. But it's very intelligent in the way that it does that, doesn't it? Because you do have that comic element, but you don't skirt over the brutality. It's a visceral film as well, isn't it?
And I knew that really the real challenge, when we shot it, and we shot more than has been shown, I knew the real challenge in the edit was going to be getting that balance, hopefully, right. And that was a long process. We can all write, myself and the writers that we were working with and the cast, we can all come up with funny stuff, but it's getting the story to feel emotionally true while staying both funny, because that's your reaction. You have to laugh because the alternative is to scream, and that was about, in the edit, making that balance. So there were various scenes that we shot that I felt were too graphic, especially early on. I just took them out. But I was also in certain scenes taking funny lines out because I thought there were moments where actually if there was a joke there, it would puncture what was happening. Sometimes also we shoot a scene and we get the cast to improvise around the scene as well. And and the responses are so funny, you don't need the gag. In many ways, the gag that started it is the thing that you can then dispense with because it's the most artificial thing, whereas the reactions, the funny reactions, all that stuff with Malenkov going, "No, all of you, I was over there, all of you," that was scripted, but his despair and they're shouting at him to try and persuade him that he was implicated was part of the improvisation that was going on there.
And you mentioned the idea of the comedy of anxiety. There are elements in this film which, when you watch it, you think, oh, that's just, incredible to be able to come up with that idea. But some of the elements which seem the most fantastical actually happened. The re-recording of the concert.
That was true.
Yeah, and what other elements did you...
Well, in real life, they got through 3 conductors, not 2, because they got another conductor in his pyjamas, and he was drunk. So they had to get a 3rd conductor in. That was true. It took place several years before Stalin died. So what we've done is, we've taken key elements that sort of sum up the kind of the terror that was going on, and obviously put them in a kind of a much more concentrated timeline. But yes, Stalin was left alone in his room for a whole day because the guards were too afraid to knock on the door. Yes, they didn't get a doctor because Stalin had put a lot of the doctors on the lists and they didn't want to get the wrong doctor. Yes, there was a respirator that was American, so they didn't want to use it. Yes, he woke up and started pointing at a painting of a young girl giving milk in a horn to a goat. Yes, Vasily lost the ice hockey team in a plane crash. So it goes on. And yes, 1,500 people were killed in disturbances in a crush outside the funeral. I mean, they came in from all over Russia, and the security forces were just ill prepared for that level of mass hysteria heading towards them.
I was wondering what your relationship to the comic was, or because a lot of comic novels use it as effectively as a storyboard, or just take a lot of shot composition.
No, I mean, what I knew from the start was that I wanted to preserve the tone of the comic and also some of the big set piece scenes. I mean, the comic does start with the concert, Stalin killing over, the Presidium arriving, arguing about doctors, moving the body, all these big set pieces, because I wanted to, that's what got me excited about it in the first place. So I wanted to hold on to that. What I definitely didn't want to do was use the comic, try and recreate the visuals of the comic. I think that's there because it's for that medium. And I've seen too many film versions of graphic novels where they've been so beholden to the look of the graphic novel that the film feels slightly empty. It doesn't feel like it's giving you anything new, really. It's just saying, hey, if this graphic novel were a film, it'd be a bit like this. And that's fine, but why have you asked me to do it? Clearly you want me to do something with this, and it's to kind of my take on the themes and the set pieces within the novel. So it was a fantastic springboard, and I spoke to Fabian from the start, and he's thrilled with the film. But I knew that it had to, and also in the comic, it after the funeral, it jumps 3 months, and then there's a series of committee meetings, and then a little bit later, Beria is shot, and that's fine in the comic, reading it like that. But it doesn't make the third act of a movie, really. So we thought, well, let's take that third act, but superimpose it over the second act, so that this is played out through the funeral. Okay, if you're going to do that, there's got to be a reason for this. Okay, what if Khrushchev is in charge of the funeral? How can he use the funeral to somehow get one over on Beria, since Beria has got one over on him? And then so that then generates its own kind of resolution.
Let's get some more questions in. Okay, we're going to go to the gentleman who's nearest to the microphone in the grey shirt.
Hi, sorry, just more of an indulgence than a question, really.
Looking forward to this.
I just want to thank you, Armando, for 20 years of unparalleled satire and making us laugh. You're absolutely fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And it's nice to know that those 20 years have had a considerable effect on politics. It's like sort of Dudley Moore said that, I love the cabaret in Germany, Berlin Cabaret in the 1930s, and the great work it did in stopping the rise of Hitler. Just kind of. No, but thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, someone's got to follow that. We're going to.